food, Mediterranean food is very attractive over here, but we still need to preserve our kind of Lebanese identity when it comes to food, to market it as Mediterranean and Lebanese at the same time. There is no or reduced food tariffs. That's also a very promising factor we have. The market is a huge $1.777 trillion in 2019. When it comes to wine, you can see that wine shipments in the United States is 403 million cases. This is approximately $62.2 billion in 2017. The US market has remained since 2010 the largest wine market in the world. So this is just to show the potential. The challenges that this webinar is actually aimed to tackle is mainly about the non-standardization and transparency. Based on my experience over the last year here, is that US importers and distributors obviously don't understand our own standards in Lebanon, and they are very hesitant to purchase Lebanese-made food and beverage products unless, and I would like to here emphasize on the word unless, those requirements, they comply with all the requirements in the United States. Those requirements, I think later on Fadi and Murad also will look into them, and are not only about ISO certification, which are very widespread today in the Lebanese market, but this is not enough at all. We have more advanced certification when it comes to labeling, nutrition, FSMA, and other kind of requirements. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that here. So, but when the advanced certification can actually enable the market, and we discussed that with Idal during our preparation as well, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So if the producers in Lebanon are directed in the right path, the market in the United States could be enabled. When it comes to beverages, I mean, one specificity about the United States that we've got like the federal and legal and regulatory rules as well. So you've got the state and federal governments that have sometimes concurrent jurisdiction when it comes to state licenses for importers and distributors, the franchise, the distribution agreements. Here I'm just referring a little bit to the structure of the market in the United States, which actually that specific topic I think deserve its own kind of webinar. The other challenges I think is to upgrade and modernize the facilities in our manufacturing, because FDA will eventually do inspections in Lebanon. So I mean, this will allow our manufacturing producers to qualify for very strict and high standard inspections. The access to big retailers in the United States, like Costco, like for example Kruger, like Trader Joe, or for example Whole Food, usually they require kind of third-party audits which are assigned by them, and Lebanon has to be ready for this kind of tough assignment. But once you comply, I think the sky might be the limit once you enter in the United States market. And another challenge is to work together, as we've been doing over the last few months, to work together, IDAL, Ministry of Agriculture, other stakeholders in the United States and in Lebanon. And the solutions here, I think this is a very important point I would like to mention here, is that entering the American market through a narrow door, I don't think will help. Instead of producers in Lebanon continuing to promote their products individually in the US market, I think it's better to get a list of products that meet the export requirement. I think this is a kind of request of our economic attaches, all my colleagues in other countries, is to have a kind of a list of products that meet the export requirements in the US, and the potential quantities available regardless of the brand name. We can then communicate with major distributors in one go instead of communicating with them to promote each product separately. Having this type of list, I think, can greatly help to promote food products in the US. Okay, here at the embassy is my final slide. When it comes to what we've been doing, we're working under that kind of, if you want, action plan to prepare. First of all, the first challenge we notice is that most producers in Lebanon do not comply with the requirements in the US. So the first step was basically to prepare those producers in collaboration with IDAL and other stakeholders. So when it comes, we have the first part of it is to create awareness. That webinar is part of the awareness. Then we will have some product by product kind of awareness webinars. For example, we'll have a Za'atar webinar coming soon. Also olive oil and gin. Also here to align the Lebanese products to the US requirements. And this is in coordination with IDAL and USAID that we also would like to thank for all their support to our producers. All their projects have been very, very supportive to our producers in Lebanon at creating jobs. And I believe that the projects that are on their way are going to do great help to our exports. And to connect the Lebanese producers to independent consultants that are locally based or internationally based. And we've got some of the best consultants here on that panel today. And once we've got that, we can move to the promotion part to open up the US market. And here, I mean, we're working with IDAL on bringing over to the Fancy Food Show in New York some Lebanese producers who already comply to the requirements. And His Excellency Ambassador Isa has endorsed also our initiative, also in collaboration with IDAL, to organize a Lebanese food show event that was scheduled in June this year. But due to the recent circumstances, that was actually delayed, to have a kind of food show event at His Excellency residence. And we've already organized some tasting events for wine and gin, and more will be coming as well. And finally, we are currently studying and working on the possibility of a Lebanese American Food Association that I think is going to bring a lot of Lebanese distributors, restaurants, and who are in the food business in the United States under the umbrella of the embassy to be able to help our producers in Lebanon in a better way. And thank you all for attending. Thank you for all participants.
Thank you, Dr. Nasreddin. Now we will start our webinar with the first presentation by Mr. Fadi Fayyad. Mr. Fayyad is a food expert and entrepreneur in the agribusiness industry. He was for more than 18 years general manager of the leading Lebanese brand Al Wadi Al Akhdar. He is now for more than 14 years a senior business advisor for LCM, and he has his own independent food consulting company. The floor is yours, Mr. Fayyad.
Okay, I would like Mr. Abdullah to remove his presentation so that I can share the screen, please.
Can you do that now?
Sorry?
I did actually, yeah.
Still on, I can still see it.
We can still see your presentation. There is a button in red up there that says stop sharing.
Yeah.
A small red button.
On the top. Yeah. Not this one. We're still sharing with others.
Okay, let me just
Abdullah, leave and come again. It will be easier for you.
Yeah, this is what I will do, yeah.
Yeah, this is the meeting controls, exactly.
Okay. Is everybody seeing the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Let me go. Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. already Celine introduced me. I'm just to tell you that I'm doing this presentation on behalf of the Links project, which is a USAID funded project and which is managed by Land O'Lakes. So we should thank them for this. And I'd like to make certain clarification. When we say exporting food products to the USA, here we mean processed food. And we mean we don't include in the beverages alcoholic beverages because it's another agency that deals with this with such products. They do not go in the same category of other food products. So mainly the export or the import of food products into the USA is governed by certain regulations. One of them is the Bioterrorism Act of 2002, the Food Safety Modernization Act, or called FSMA, which is an old one, but which was modernized in 2010 and started in January 2011. The Food Labeling and Nutrition Regulation, the new revision was the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act. Also, there are other regulations that impact the import of food products, which came before or which are old, like low acid and acidified foods, the Seafood Safety Program, the Juice HACCP, and mainly the Manual of Compliance Policy, which on Chapter 5 relates to food, colors, and additives. So this is something also that has to be addressed whenever you want to export food products to the USA. I have added on the bottom of the presentation a link where you can go and read more about this manual of food compliance. Now, mainly the enforcing agency is the FDA. The USDA also, which is United States Department of Agriculture, is more concerned with raw agricultural products or products that are from animal sources, such as meat and milk, where Lebanon still cannot export to the USA. Except of bee honey, we are not allowed as a country to export animal origin products to the USA. Also, the USDA sometimes is involved in the some marketing requirements for certain products like pickles and olives and so on, but it's not linked to the processing, but actually to the presentation of the food products. So we are going to focus on here in this presentation on the FDA requirements. If we start with the Bioterrorism Act, the important point is that this act obliges all companies, whether local or foreign or exporting to us, to register with the FDA. In order to do that, there's an application which could be done online and also could be done in paper form. It doesn't take much, it requires certain information, but what's important that it imposes on each company what you call a US agent. This US agent is not necessarily a commercial agent, but it could be any person having a business address in the USA and who knows the company and who can talk on behalf of the company in case FDA requires them in an emergency to requires information or wants to transfer information to the companies. This number is an 11-digit number which has to be renewed every 2 years. Another mandatory requirement is that before any shipment arriving to the USA by air or by sea, then it has to be advancedly informed. FDA should be informed in advance at least 8 hours before landing. It could be 1 month before landing, it's not a problem, but not less than 8 hours before. Otherwise, the shipment will not go in. And this could be done online, so the company could do it. But usually what's done is that the clearing agents, they are doing it before the shipment is arriving because it requires sometimes a bit complicated information to know and certain custom codes and so on. The Food Safety and Modernization Act has been modernized in 2010 and started being active in January 2011. It has done some modification. Actually, it's just to talk a little bit about it. Its main purpose actually is to increase the food safety control of FDA in the USA, and they want to make sure so it gives more prerogatives to FDA, and also it requires that even importing companies like foreign companies to abide with the same rules as the domestic companies. So that they have an aligned food safety rules. So this means that it's putting more pressure on the foreign companies. If they want to sell products in the USA, they have to abide by the rules as if they were a company working in the USA. And what they have done at the beginning is that they have modified the some of the Bioterrorism Act requirements, like, for example, including in the registration application that they have to commit that FDA will be permitted to inspect the facility. So FDA, anybody who registers with the FDA is accepting that the FDA can anytime come and visit or inspect its facility, even if it's outside. Another requirement is that the food facility registration, which was like a permanent registration, has to be renewed now every other year. It means every 2 years. Usually it's an even number year. And it gave also the FDA some prerogatives to be able to cancel this registration if they think that the food this facility is selling or holding in the US can cause a serious hazard. So they can decide, even with the reasonable doubt, they don't have even to find something wrong, they could stop a registration. What also this Food Safety and Modernization Act requires is that each food facility, whether domestic or foreign, has to apply what they call a risk-based preventive system. What is this risk-based preventive system or control? It is a hazard-based. So most companies have already and obliged, if they want to export to USA, to have a hazard-based system and a good manufacturing system. But it has been slightly modified by the FDA in the FSMA in order to include what you call the preventive controls. And those preventive controls add to the requirements of the current good manufacturing practices and to the HACCP requirement. And these, we will talk a little bit about them later. And these require that companies have a written food safety plan, so which includes analysis of the hazards, but also the preventive controls on activities that are not necessarily sometimes considered as critical control points. So it requires a bit more, it's a more detailed approach to the good manufacturing practices. And this has to be implemented in all facilities wishing to export to the USA. This food safety plan should be developed by or overseen by a preventive control or qualified individual. This is also part of the FSMA. It's called a PCQI. This person actually, in order to become a PCQI, you have to attend a training based on an FDA developed curriculum. So it's a 3 days training, and whenever you have this training and you have the background, you can become a PCQI. So each company wanting to export food products to the USA has to have at least one person in the company who has attended this training. Now, if you go a bit quickly, it was the written food safety plan procedures and forms. It should include the following. So hazard analysis, which is analyzing, for those who know HACCP, it's analyzing all the potential hazards and writing them, and then preventive controls. So preventive controls include process controls, food allergen controls, sanitation control, other controls related to the preventive controls, but are not CCPs. Here, the food allergen control, everything which is written in red are actually an addition to the usual good manufacturing or current good manufacturing practices. These controls have to be also managed, monitored, corrections have to be made, and corrective actions. So there's a difference between correction and corrective actions. So any deviation from the procedures which could cause a hazard has to be corrected and has to be documented in this food safety plan. This, if you want to know more about it, I have also included at the bottom an email address. I mean, a web address where you can see it in much more details. Now, with this risk-based preventive controls, it also involves the supply chain. Meaning what? Meaning the suppliers or even the clients of the facility. If the supplier has a potential hazard which needs to be controlled and which is not controlled by the company itself, by the facility, then it should be also addressed within this preventive the food safety plan. So we should go to these facilities, to the supplier, and make sure that he has or it has a system that assures the safety of the food product it supplies to the food company. And the same thing if it's with the client, I mean the storage of the food products, if the special storage conditions are required. And also a recall program. A recall program is needed if any of the preventive controls if the hazard is identified in any of the preventive controls, this hazard has to have a recall plan. It means that the company should know beforehand what to do if there is any hazard that emerges from its products, which defies any of the preventive controls. So the recall plan must include procedures to notify the consignee in case there is a hazard in the product, to notify the public when the hazard is very serious, to conduct effectiveness checks, and to appropriately dispose of recalled products, to make sure that the product has been removed from the market and that it has been disposed in the right way. So this is another requirement for companies in the Food Safety Modernization Act. Now, if we said before there are certain regulations that have been there before the FSMA. And these are the low acid canned food for those companies in Lebanon, for example, the canning companies who export to the USA. The juice HACCP, it's a HACCP specialized for companies producing juice, and another HACCP specified for those companies who produce seafood. It's not that they are exempt from the preventive control as required by FSMA, but they are exempted from certain parts that are already included in their own system. So it's not that they are out of the system, but they do not have to comply with all the requirements because some of them are already existing in their own system. So this is not to have two contradictory regulations. There are guidelines which I have highlighted here in blue. These are guidelines existing to compare the FSMA requirement with all the existing older regulations. Okay. For example, under low acid and acidified food package, because this is important for companies who produce canned foods or foods that are preserved, which are low acid or acidified. It means having a pH of 4.6 and above, or had a pH of 4.6 and above, but was reduced through addition of acidic products. These companies should be registered. In addition to the food facility registration, they have to register the establishment under what we call an FCE number. It's a 5-digit number. This is a permanent number which sticks with the company as long as it keeps its address. And another registration could be for certain products that have to be filed. So you cannot export any product to the USA. Some products need also to be registered as products under what you call an SID number. So it's a submission identifier number. So for companies who produce low acid and acidified food, they have also to have those registrations. Finally, there are, in this rule, there's something we call mitigation strategies. It is basically those strategies are, I mean, the rule is mainly linked to larger companies where there could be a possibility of lack of control, and there could be a potential intentional adulteration taking place in the company. And here the FSMA requires that those companies develop what you call a food defense plan, which is a written plan that will identify what are the potential vulnerabilities and what are the actionable process steps that will avoid or protect them from any adulteration. So what we call mitigation strategies. And what are the procedures for food defense, monitoring, corrective actions, and verifications. Also, the company should assure that the personnel responsible are well trained and are well aware of those vulnerable areas, and that they have records on if anything that goes wrong should be put on record. So this is another requirement for the of the FSMA, which companies have to develop. If you go to the food labeling and nutrition regulations, this is a very important regulation because most of the Lebanese companies, even before FSMA, had problems with when they are exporting to the USA. And when we say the food labeling and nutrition, we mean all the mandatory labeling requirements of a food product, which sometimes could be in general, but sometimes could be specific to certain products, whether it's jams or it is juices, whether it is, for example, beans and so on. Also to the nutritional labeling requirements, because nutritional labeling is mandatory in the USA, so it has to be done in a certain format, which is only accepted in the USA actually. And this format, I will show you an example later on, has lots of requirements. It includes like 14 nutrients, and they have to be declared in a certain way based on the serving size. And this is something that has to be done in the proper way. Otherwise, the companies might face rejection possibilities. Also, another important item is any claim. So mainly if it's a nutrient claim, or more important, a health claim or descriptive claims, these claims should follow also the rules provided by the food labeling laws. And these are sometimes not so easy. You cannot claim anything. It's easier to claim a nutrient. It's easier to have a nutrient claim because it would say it is based on something you can measure, but health claims are very, very difficult to put. I don't advise people to add any health claim on their labels unless they are sure it's accepted by the FDA and they approve what's written, the statement that you write on your label. Otherwise, it will definitely be rejected. And also here, it's an important, because it's very easy to catch. Anything on the label is very easy. It's obvious. So most of the rejections are done as a result of bad labeling, what the FDA calls adulteration charges. It means they consider that your product is adulterated because it's not providing the right information. And food labeling has become part of the food safety plan. So this is an example of a new nutritional labeling, which has become actually mandatory since I think July 18. They have modified certain aspects, but as you can see, you need to have them in this format in a box. The 14 nutrients with a percentage of daily value, which is very specific to the USA because it's based on a 2,000 calorie diet developed on the American population. So when we say 10% fat, it means it provides 10% of the daily fat required by an average American between 4 and 70 years. So here it's a very US specific format, which mainly works in USA and in Canada. In our countries here, we accept it if it's in Arabic, but it's not, it doesn't follow our regulations. There's also an important one, which is very much highlighted in the FSMA, is the Allergen and Labeling and Protection Act. Actually, it's an amendment of the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act, and it requires that any major allergen existing in the product be declared and in the presence and in a way that I will show you later on. It identifies actually 8 foods or food groups as major allergens. These are, I will name them quickly: milk, eggs, fish, like bass, flounder, cod, crustacean shellfish, like crab, lobsters, and shrimp, tree nuts, almonds, walnuts, pecans, peanuts, wheat, and soybeans. These are the main 8 groups that need to be declared or highlighted on your label whenever they exist. And this is also another one of the biggest reasons of product rejection in the USA. So I'm going to give you an example here how it should be written. For example, if you have lecithin as an emulsifier, then you have to say lecithin and soy between brackets. So it means it is part of soybean, flour, wheat, and whey milk. So the product, so it's a whey is a milk product, flour is a wheat product. Or after the list of ingredients, you say clearly it contains wheat or milk or soy and so on. This has to be highlighted in bold, and it's very important never to miss the allergens on your label. Now, there are also some responsibilities for the importer. Because the importer, according to US law, is responsible for any product they would like to sell in the USA. And they have to ensure that it's safe, sanitary, and it's labeled correctly. So the FSMA gave them some responsibilities. Okay, one of them is what you call the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. This is a program that has to be really implemented by the importer with his suppliers. He has to have a program that assures that the supplier is actually abiding, but what we have discussed previously, like the food safety and the preventive controls, and that this product are safe, and that is abiding with the US regulations, all the regulations we have mentioned. It's the role of the importer to do this, and he has to prove it to the FDA that he is doing this job. Okay, now it's not a job which is very precise. It means it's not something that the FDA is very demanding on. It gives the importer some leeway in providing it, and the interference of the importer with the supplier is dependent basically on how serious is the hazard or the safety risks that he has. And the more risk, the more the product he is working with has a high risk of food safety, then the more requirements the importer will have to ask from the supplier to provide him so that he can assure FDA that everything is being verified. So the importers are required to develop and maintain and follow this food safety verification program for each food product they buy, even if they buy it from the same supplier. So it's not supplier related, it's food related, product related. And if they buy the same product from different suppliers, then each supplier should also have this food safety, this foreign supplier verification program. Many companies in Lebanon today are feeling this. They are being asked lots of questions by their clients in the USA, and they're trying to fill files. And so it has started already, and all the importers are developing files on their suppliers and making sure that they abide by the requirements. So now the importers, as I said, they have the flexibility to tailor supplier verification activities depending on the risk and on the supplier. If they know that supplier is good, they might be less exigent, but if they are not sure about their supplier, they might become more exigent. So what kind of requirements could the importer ask for? Of course, the most complicated one is that the annual on-site audits of the supplier. This is done usually when there is exposure to high risk of hazard risk. Okay, and so the importer, which is not in the supplier's company, might ask for an audit. Usually it's a third-party audit. It's not a requirement, it's not necessary unless there is a doubt from the importer or from the FDA that the products of this company are not can cause serious health hazards. Okay. Now another thing, we can ask for samples and test them. It's better today to test them in the USA because then you will not have the problem of accreditation, which we'll discuss later on. Also, he could ask for the company to send its relevant food safety records to make sure that they are doing it and it's well done. And also, each importer has to have a unique facility identifier, which is an electronic mail recognized by FDA. And FDA has recognized what you call the DUNS number as an acceptable unique facility identifier. But this is not really the food companies in Lebanon who have to do it. It's more the importer has to have this number with the FDA so that he can communicate with them and show them any data they require on their suppliers. Another program which is more voluntary, so it's not imposed by the FDA, but it's a more, if you want, ambitious program, which, if applied, can expedite the business of the importer. So it makes his business becomes quicker, and he will have, if you want, privileged treatment with FDA. Not anybody can adhere to this. They have to have at least a minimum of 3 years history of importing food products, and that they have to have a good reputation. But if they are part of this program, they can import their products to the US with greater speed and predictability. When we say predictability, this is a new system developed by FDA, which is called how they predict with information and this data they collect, they can predict the seriousness of the hazard seriousness of a food product. And this is so they can use this new tool that they have to help those speed up the work of those companies who are part of this voluntary VQIAP. Okay. So whenever you are part of it, you have limited examination and sampling, especially in case of pandemics, for example, if there's a crisis. FDA sampling at preferred locations. So FDA would give you the possibility to choose which location you would like to have your samples tested or taken. The lab results are faster, so it's priority with those companies, those importers actually. And you can have a help desk to help importers on the food safety of their products. So it's like a service. It's a paid service. It's a fee-based given by FDA to companies who would like to have a more efficient service. Finally, what you call is the accredited third-party certification rule. This is still not final, but actually what it amounts to is that FDA at the beginning wanted to select certification bodies. And it created a big problem worldwide, I mean, not only in Lebanon, because many countries believe that their government institutions are quite credible and they can provide certification, and then they don't want to be selected by FDA. So what the FDA did is that they have selected accreditation bodies. And so they recognize a number of international accreditation bodies, and those accreditation bodies have the role to accredit certifying bodies. So any certifying body accredited by a recognized by FDA can be used to certify company. This is important especially for those who want to be part of the voluntary qualified importer program, or companies who need to have a third-party audit. They need to go to a certification body who is accredited by a body recognized by the FDA. So this is the accredited third-party certification rule. This is still ongoing. It's not yet, there's no final rule on it, but this is the system that the FDA is following. Okay, it's the same thing with the labs. I will speak a little bit about the labs because also whenever there is a need to test a product, FDA would like to know that this product is coming from an accredited lab. So you cannot just send a test of your product, analysis of your product, and from any lab. This lab has to have an accreditation, and this accreditation should be coming from a body which is recognized by FDA. This is one of the major problems actually that the Lebanese companies might have or will have in the future, because especially if they have problems in the USA and they need to test their products, today they can only do it through testing with a US lab, which is very expensive, or work with local labs that have been accredited by a body which is recognized by FDA. But I think this will sort out with time. Thank you very much for listening. I hope it wasn't too long.
Fadi, we received a lot of questions regarding your presentation. We will share them at the end, so you're able to address them one by one. Now we will continue our webinar with Mr. Murad Aoun. Mr. Aoun is a logistics and transportation expert and the CEO of one of the leading freight forwarding companies in the Middle East, the Net Holding. The floor is yours, Murad.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Celine, and thank you, Idal, for inviting me to share my experience on shipping and logistics into the US. I have prepared a very basic, I would call it 101 in shipping. So I'm not aware who are the attendees. And this is why I made it very simple. Whoever never had a shipping experience can understand what we're talking about. I will start by a small presentation on the company, how to export from Lebanon in general. Are you having a full screen or are you having something else, Celine? What do you see?
The PowerPoint, I can see the slides, so you can put it full screen, then we don't see the slides.
Well, here we go. So, so I will start with a very small presentation of the group. Then we'll talk about export from Lebanon. What are the solutions? What are the customs requirements? Then we'll talk about exporting to the USA, shipping gateway, etc. Then we'll talk about the US customs requirement, e-commerce to the USA, and I think this is a chapter that would be very interesting for everyone, and some creative solution on how we can really go into bypassing some of the barriers that the US is setting for shipping foods and beverage into the US. So very quickly, we are a company that started 25 years ago. I'm talking about this just to tell you that the experience that we have is in all express, freight, and logistics in the region. And we have been, last year, we started trading under one name that is the Net, consolidating all the brands that we have. Talking about exporting from Lebanon, obviously there are several ways to export from Lebanon. You have the sea freight, you have the air freight, and you have the express. Now, the decision to be made on how to export is based on the speed you want to reach the destination for sure, but also the cost. Obviously, if you choose to ship by ocean, by sea freight, it is cheap, but it takes much longer to reach a destination than if you send it by air freight. And we're going to talk about the shipping by sea freight more in details at a later stage. But shipping by air freight, it is fast, but at the same time, it requires additional cost, because if you're shipping, for instance, oil by air freight as a liquid, it will require additional packing, and that is more cost into your shipping cost structure. If you use the express, this is a very fast way to reach the US. It is a door-to-door solution, but also much more expensive than shipping by air freight, because it's based on an express service, and usually it is prohibitive for any shipment above 5 kilograms. So anyway, in any way you want to ship, if you are shipping commercial goods out of Lebanon, the Lebanese customs require that you are being identified as a company. As a private person, you can only ship your personal effects. So you need to be a company registered in a certain legal form, whether it is institution or SRL or SAL. Any legal form will be required to ship commercial goods out of Lebanon. The legal documents for every shipment that you're going to do will be the commercial register certificate of the company circular, who signs on behalf of the company, obviously copy of the ID of the guy, of the person who is responsible of the company. You need to have a tax identification number or TIN. The tax identification number will give you also the VAT number in order to be able to track and cash back your VAT whenever, or to ship without VAT declaration. And there is a form that is used by customs called EX1 that needs to be signed, that is, you are the exporter. One of the most challenging document that is being required these days is the CNSS release, Bara'at Zimmi Daman, which is a bit challenging over these days. That means you need to be, you need to have paid all your dues to the Daman in order to be able to ship anything commercially from Lebanon. Now, when it comes to the commercial documents that you have, then you need to have a packing list for sure, containing all the quantity of the items, quantity per box, quantity per pallets, just to be able to recognize the goods when it is shipped. And what better to have details on the boxes, what they are, what you have inside these boxes. The commercial invoice should contain the product HS code. At this level, there are two HS codes. There is the international HS code that we all use, and you have the US HS code. It is preferable to use the US HS code whenever you want to ship to the US. For instance, the Lebanese customs use the the World Customs Organization HS code. That is different than the HS code from the US. We will need two HS codes, one for Lebanon and one for the US for sure. Value of each product, quantity of the product, this has to be on your invoice, and this is something important for customs for validation. Now, based on the HS code that you are shipping, so whether it is honey, it is thyme, or it is any product, that any food or beverage product, there are requirements by Lebanese customs to have in order to be able to ship them. So either you need to have a license from the MOH, Ministry of Health, or Ministry of Agriculture. Sometimes you need a laboratory certificate on the product itself. Sometimes you need more approvals before you ship all these, in order to make sure that the product that are going out are secured or are compliant and up to the specs of the country, of Lebanon as a country. Now, if you want to ship to the USA, shipping the USA can be a bit challenging, because the USA is huge. You cannot, and this is one of the biggest challenges that you're going to have. If you're consignee, or if you are going to work with the traders, then it is much easier because you know where the trader is. But if you want to go into e-commerce, that it would be a bit more challenging because then you need to decide where you want to go. In fact, shipping to the USA by sea has to be, so as you see, you have the East Coast and the West Coast. And you need to know which port is the closest to your client, consignee, or trader in order to use it, to get into it in the fastest way possible. So I have prepared a very quick names. So the main ports in the US on the East Coast are Newark, New York, Baltimore, Jacksonville, or any of these ports that are on the East Coast can be used to get into the closest state, or you use the West Coast ports to get into the west area of the USA. The average transit time from Beirut, obviously through Europe, is between 30 to 40 days. Sometimes it can be a bit more, depending on the sailing time, or depending on the port that you are going. And when I'm counting these days, that includes getting them out of your warehouse into the port and then shipping them by sea to reach the port of destination. The sailing journey can be between 25 to 35 days, and you need to account 3 to 5 days for FOB formalities, pickup, etc., etc. I have just set an approximate number for shipping costs. So if you're shipping a 20-foot container, for those who don't understand a container, 20-foot, it's like 25 to 30 CBM with 20 to 25 tons. It's a lot of product if you are a startup, but if you are shipping a 20-foot container, it will be around $3,000 door to port, all charges included. If you're shipping a 40-foot container, which is around 55 CBM and 25 to 28 tons, it's around $4,000 for shipping. So as you can see, shipping is very cost effective when it compares to the volume that you are shipping. And this can be a good way to do that if you have enough volume to ship to your consignee or to your counterpart in the US. Shipping by air becomes a bit more challenging because from Beirut, there are few airlines that service major cities by air freight. So if you're going, you go directly to some of the major cities. EK is probably one of the most airlines that is servicing most of the US airports, but it is much more easier to use air freight to get into the inland states, and usually they use US airlines to connect through the main international hubs in the US. Average transit time from Beirut to the US is around 3 to 5 days, depending on the airport. Average price for a minimum of 200 kilos around $3 to $5, depending on the airline that you are going to use. All these are door to airport charges. That means you still need to clear and deliver the goods into the state that you are looking for, or the city that you want to ship to in the US. Obviously, these rates are before COVID-19. So nowadays, rates are extremely high. So it's because we don't have commercial airlines flying from Lebanon. And I think after the crisis, or after July 1st, where we are hoping that the airport will open up, we will see different rating and different prices from all airlines, because they have been very heavily affected by the pandemic that happened. Now, going back to the US customs import, at this level, as Fadi has explained, it's quite complicated. Customs authority and border protection are very cautious when it comes to food and beverage. There are a lot of requirements and a lot of prior notification to be done. As he has already explained, customs required FDA for food and beverage, and USDA for raw products like olives or unprocessed olives or meat or something else. Lebanese manufacturers again have to be registered with FDA, and every time we ship a package or anything out of Lebanon, we need to notify FDA prior to the sailing for them to know that your goods are arriving. And obviously, as he explained, the foreign supplier verification form is extremely important for them, and it has to be pre-filled or filled prior to the arrival of each shipment. Now, as I've explained, the US HS code are different, and the US taxes are very particular, so they can charge you per liter or per kilogram, regardless on the price that you have declared. So it's very particular in terms of taxation. Also, everything needs to be identified based on the US HS codes. So your exporter or your shipping company or your importer has to help you identifying these taxes or these HS code before you ship into the US, and obviously they need to be mentioned on your invoice. Fadi already touched base with the FDA prior submission, and this is extremely important. And the foreign supplier verification program, these can be done by you. You don't need a freight forwarder to do it. Usually freight forwarder does it on your behalf, or an express company will do it on your behalf. But this is something, if you are a big exporter, you can do it yourself. And these are the links where you can go and get more information about that. What is a simple way to do that? So FDA pre-approval, we get the FSVP ready. We file the online customs clearance. And by the way, this is very important. In the US, you can clear any shipment in any port or airport online. So you don't need to be in that city. You can do it from any state online, and it can be done. So you do your e-payment for taxes, and then you transfer the goods to the final consignee for delivery. This is the regular process arriving at the port or at the airport in the US. It's a bit complicated if you are not used to that, but once you do it once, it's the same process that you do it again every time. So now this is the part that I like the most, because as I understand, most of the companies are new in export. So basically they probably don't have a lot of connections or traders that they can sell their product. And as you all know, with COVID-19, before COVID-19, e-commerce was a huge global trade development. Now with COVID-19, it became much more interesting. What I have developed some information that gathered some information that might be very interesting for you. If you are shipping into the US for a private or individual consumer, a package that is below $800, then it will be free of tax. So it is exempted from tax, and it is exempted from the FSVP, the party declaration, which is a quite interesting thing if you want to develop your business and sell online and grow your business online without needing anyone in the States. So you can be on a platform selling your product online, and you can ship directly from Lebanon. Now, if you want to do the e-commerce, there are two ways of doing the e-commerce, and this is the interesting part. Either you can do it out of Lebanon, so you can set up your e-commerce warehouse in Lebanon, you get your orders online, and then you start packing your product. Very important thing, you still have to be registered with FDA for all your products. You cannot skip the FDA registration, but you can skip the FSVP party declaration registration. So any package below $800, and $800 is a lot of money for a basket of Lebanese product that can be sent to the US without any taxes. So you can have your warehouse in Lebanon, You can have you can pack your product and then you can send them by express as an e-commerce product. The prices might be expensive, all depends on the type of product that you have. Again, we go, if we're talking about oil, it's a different packing requirement that you have, and all depends on the product. But this is something that is quite interesting. If you have a product that is less than 5 kilograms and can generate honey, for instance, that can be something quite interesting to be shipped, because it's a high value and it doesn't take a lot of volume and weight. So 5 kilograms of honey could be something very interesting. The other way of doing e-commerce is having the hub or the fulfillment center in the US. So traditionally you will have a commercial trade partner. So you're shipping to him your traditional commercial activities. He's your distributor in the US. You can set up with him a kind of fulfillment center where your products that have been already cleared into the US, but you already have paid customs duties on them, then you can ship them to the US, to the consignee or to the shopper online from the US directly on a ground service or in an express service in the US. You can have your fulfillment center in New York or in Newark or in Los Angeles, depending where is your market. And this is something quite interesting for the Lebanese embassy to help. Where is the biggest concentration of Lebanese diaspora in the US? And based on that, you can design fulfillment centers or solution for e-commerce that I personally believe is the future, and it will cut a lot of red tapes in terms of reaching your consumer at the lowest price possible. Beside that, again, never forget in the e-commerce, it's all about customer experience. So e-commerce will grow more if your customer is happy, and the experience of the customer is very linked to the speed of delivery and obviously to the shipping cost that sometimes can be prohibitive if the shipping model is not correct. So customer experience means getting the product on time, at the right price, and with the right combination of product, service, and price. Something that you need to take into consideration: the last mile delivery in the US can be very high. Sometimes if you ship from New York to DC, it will cost you a 2-pound envelope. It will cost you more than shipping it from Lebanon to DC directly. So the US is not a cheap country, especially when it comes to domestic services, whether it is ground or express. But last mile in the US can go up to 5 days transit time, depending if you're going from New York down to Los Angeles or any other destination. So again, there are in shipping, you cannot have one formula. You cannot take one slide or one formula and apply it. You need to start with your product. Based on your product weight, value, and sensibility and sensitivity, you can build an omni-channel integration solution based on what is the best way to get into the market or get into your consignees or your consumers. Something that you need to take into consideration while thinking of e-commerce, and never forget that is the reverse logistics. So if somebody will receive the product and decide that he doesn't want it, you need to take into consideration how you're going to reroute all these return shipments and how you're going to deal with them. These are fruitful thoughts for you to think about e-commerce, because I personally think it's the way forward, and it is already disrupting all businesses. Why not disrupting the food and beverage industry globally? The good thing about it is that you can have it in Lebanon, and have your payment gateway for fresh dollars, even if it is on e-commerce, and get it into your bank account and develop your business globally on the same concept. Again, I highly recommend that you look into your product and then design your e-commerce business. Don't take another experience of e-commerce and try to apply it, because every product has a different needs for e-commerce solution. Now, I've thought of some creative solution that will help Lebanese exporters or new companies or any company that would like to start exporting, whether it is a startup or a traditional company, to go into something called as Abdullah said, one, it can be having one entity or one exporter. It's like the cooperative or something like that, that will facilitate and help all these small shippers or exporters to consolidate their product in Lebanon and ship them by sea if they're going to a trader, and having one importer in the US doing the business for everyone, because that will cut the cost of shipping and clearing and transportation a lot. So you can have a sea freight consolidation built through IDAL or through USAID, a program that will help exporters to ship into the US. We can have a weekly sailing into the East Coast and the weekly sailing into the West Coast. All these can be programs that can be developed with the support of IDAL or USAID. It can be the same for air freight, and this is something that can also be developed very quickly. Something else that I thought of, probably I called it a Lebanese money box. So if we want to make use of this added value that the US Customs is giving, $800 is a lot of money for a money box. So we can have a money box of 5 kilos, 10 kilos, or 15 kilograms, or even 20 kilograms with a mix of products. The condition is that all products have to be registered with FDA. So we can send a liter of olive oil with thyme, with honey, with other product, and that would be the money that he's getting from Lebanon, straight from Lebanon. And I don't think it will go above the $750. You can have smaller packages, $100 package, $300 package. But again, this will require a kind of organism, whether it is IDAL or somebody else, or even private company that would think of doing it. I know that there is a website called Made in Lebanon that he might be probably interested to develop such thing. But anything that will minimize the cost and help people working together towards one, whether it is from a marketing perspective, selling it on marketplaces, or promoting it in the US. The interesting part, this can be done in Lebanon, so you don't need to have your stock out in the US. The stock can be in Lebanon. You can use it for local market, or you can use it for international market. It can be in our fulfillment center, or it can be in any fulfillment center where you can pack these goods and then we ship them into the US, and we benefit from the $800 exemption of tax and the FSVP exemption of declaration. This can be something that would reach your consignee within 6 to 8 days, depending on the order. But this something can be quite big if it is planned and worked in a good manner. So pretty much you have a fulfillment center, you get the order online, you work it in the fulfillment center, you store it, you package it, and then you consolidate it, you export it to the US, you do the customs clearance with the FDA approval, and then you do the last mile delivery in the US. And that would be your international last mile delivery for e-commerce.
Thank you, Murad. Thank you, Murad, so much for the presentation. We're running a little bit out of time. Now I will move to Mr. Sam Jawde. Mr. Sam is an international FMCG broker and consultant, advising companies on their go-to-market strategy to enter to the US market. He has worked with various Lebanese brands to help them understand requirements and assist them in negotiations with distributors and retailers. The floor is yours, Sam.
Hi, thank you, Celine, for the introduction. Let me first start by sharing my screen. And okay. Oops, that's the wrong one. I apologize. How do you get out of this one? I shared the wrong one.
Yes, you just do X, I think, and it works.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't see it anymore.
Yeah, I see that. All right. That's the right one. Slideshow. Oops. All right. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. First of all, I want to thank Idal for this great initiative. Thank the team and the leadership, Dr. Suede, and then the Lebanese embassy in Washington, Ambassador Isa, and special thanks to Dr. Abdallah too, because he works very hard on making things happen. So thank you guys for this great initiative. Even though Lebanon is going through tough times, you guys are still thinking the positive way and how to move forward. So I want to start with my first slide. I preach this to every client I work with in Lebanon. Building a brand in the USA is a marathon, not a sprint. You have to invest in the market in order to get the rewards. So if my client doesn't understand this statement, I usually tell them to wait, and then when they're ready, we can start all over again. In order to have success in distribution, you cannot ignore the two major prerequisites: branding, and falls under it, innovation and FDA. And I think the two prior speakers did a great job on explaining the FDA. I would like to talk more about branding, which we'll see later on. Branding is so important. When I started my company in the US, I thought I will be dealing just with set up the distribution for the companies and move the product. And I quickly discovered that I cannot do that. In order for us to be successful, I have to be involved from the beginning of the inception of the product, like the FDA, the branding, in order to bring the product to the US. And branding and FDA is half the problem. And if you take care of these two, it's easier to distribute in the US. You should have a plan with long-term vision. Otherwise, don't attempt to enter the USA market. Many think that North America market has great potential, and they are right. The consumer is becoming savvier and is also looking for better quality products. We have a great opportunity because the Mediterranean diet continues in popularity, and North America is now embracing Middle Eastern food. And I would like to share with you a couple quotes from Whole Foods. Whole Foods is the largest retailer in the US, and they're talking about frike, tabbouleh, and products from the Middle East. And there's other companies like Specialty Foods talking about our food being, taking America by a storm. In specific, they said Middle Eastern cuisine will take America by storm. And that was published in 2018, April 2018. The United States import over $2.5 trillion a year. So this is a big market. I'm going to share with you some of the products that are related to Lebanon. Olive oil. Olive oil in the US is over $1 billion. growing almost 4.5%, 5% every year. Then you have the condiments. Condiments are like pomegranate molasses, spices, za'atar, stuff similar to these things. And that's another $2.6 billion. That's a huge market. And we can really compete in this arena if we do the things that I will discuss now. Some of the challenges faced by Lebanese manufacturers that I deal with on a regular basis: tactical versus strategic market entry with no feasibility or market assessment. It seems like, and
Sam, your presentation is not moving, so we're just seeing one slide.
Oh, okay. How about now?
Yes, now it's working.
Okay. So going back to tactical versus strategic market entry with no feasibility or market assessment, we call this in the USA shooting from the hip and not really having a good target. We don't do a consumer study. We don't have any price structure. Who is our competitor? We just create a product and we throw it out there. And most of the time it's a Me Too product. And what I mean by that is there's another product in the market that is similar to yours. It's been established for a long time. And just because you decided that, okay, I can make a product like this product, I will do well. And they forget that this company has been there for years, competing in this space, and it's not easy to penetrate that space. So what I do usually before I take over a company, I do a feasibility study. I do a price structure study. I look at the competitors and see who we are playing with, and then go back to the company in Lebanon and give them a report explaining to them what they need to do if they want to compete in this market. And it's an issue all the time. Lack of proper certificates. Mr. Fayyad touched on this very well. ISO 9000 is a great entry level, but in order to get into mainstream, it's like getting a high school diploma and trying to work for corporate America. ISO 9000 is a very basic certificate, and I lose business on a regular basis because of lack of certifications. And I'm not talking about hundreds of thousands, it could be millions of dollars because we don't have the certifications. So it is very important. I don't want to dwell on it a lot. I just want to make sure you guys understand that this is a big problem. No marketing planning due to margin structure and middleman. Most of the companies in Lebanon only focus on ethnic distributors or ethnic consumers in the US, which they represent less than 10% of the market. And what I have seen over the years is these distributors keep beating the manufacturers in Lebanon to get the best price. And the Lebanese manufacturers are desperate to sell. So they sell at a low margin. They can hardly make any profit. Then these same distributors will come back to these manufacturers and ask for marketing dollars. And these manufacturers in Lebanon are like, I don't have any more money to give you. I gave you everything I have. So they don't plan very well for marketing. And marketing in the US, it's so important. If you cannot market your product, nobody will know about it. It's a big market. There's a lot of potential, but there's a lot of competitors. Short-term versus long-term planning. I hear that a lot. I'll invest once when I generate profits. Guys, if you can find me a business that you can apply this, let me know. If you don't invest in the product and the marketing, you're not going to go anywhere. What amazes me is all the manufacturers in Lebanon understand all these basics and they apply them well in Lebanon. But when it comes to export, they forget all about it. They think, okay, I can just throw my product there and the distributor will sell it. Well, guess what? The distributor basically is an order taker. The distributor in the US does not understand marketing, does not know how to grow your product. He will make an attempt at selling it to his retailers. And if they don't like the product, you're dead in the water, you're done. They will never order again. And I see that a lot. They ship one container and never get any reorders. And the manufacturers in Lebanon think, oh, maybe they made a mistake. Well, the distributor is not a marketing company. He is simply a distributor. He just have salespeople on the street, push the product, and some of them don't even have salespeople on the street because it's the way they do business, the ethnic way. So if you don't invest in your brand and think long-term, like I said earlier, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You need to think 12 months. You need to put a plan together. And don't think I'm gonna make profit the first 12 months. How many of these companies in Lebanon, when they first started making a product, made money the first month? It's impossible. You have to invest in marketing, in different strategies to get the consumer to like the product, like food sampling, social media, proper website, tailored for the US market. You need to do all these things in order to get your product to sell in the US. Otherwise, again, you're dead in the water. Nobody will know about you. Working with the wrong distributor. Not every time somebody calls you and tells you, I want an order from you, he is the right fit for you. I've seen many brands over the years get damaged in the US. Even though the US market is massive, it's big, but it is very small when it comes to the food products. Everybody knows everybody. So you sell a product to the wrong distributor. He does not have the resources to sell your product. He's weak in the market. He's just making an attempt at your product because you gave him such a great price. You get excited in Lebanon that I sold a product in the US. This guy cannot push your product. In the end, he will just liquidate the product and damage the brand. And everybody thinks that it's your product was bad, not the distributor. Because they're not going to blame the distributor. They're going to say, oh, brand XYZ failed. Apparently, they did not have what it needs to sell in the US, so you're done. So you try to make other attempts, and then these people talk among each other. What is your experience with brand X? Oh, it was horrible. Then you're done. So again, you need to do your homework. Many manufacturers will come to me on a regular basis and tell me, why don't you work with this guy? Why don't you work with this guy? Well, we have a program, or we have a tier program in the US. We call it A distributor, B distributor, C distributor. If you start with a C distributor, the A distributor will not touch your product. Usually in Lebanon, they think, let's start with a C distributor and build ourselves up. And actually, it's the other way around. You should target your A distributor first, be patient, be consistent, be persistent. And then if the A distributor cannot take your product, then you go down to distributor B or then distributor C. Because A is the guy you want to work with because he has the most market share and he can help your brand grow. So I see this all the time. I usually tell my clients in Lebanon, be patient, take your time. Again, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Let's take our time and do it right. And do it right from the beginning, because it's easier to do it right from the beginning rather than try to repair all the damage later on and try to make excuses. And maybe half the distributor will listen to your excuses and the other half will say, no, that was a bad product, and you're done. So you take all the heat and the distributor didn't lose anything. The number 6 point here is lack of understanding of consumer buying habits. Every culture has a way of looking at products. When the consumer goes to the supermarket and looks at your product for the first time, he will make a decision in 10 to 20 seconds if he's going to buy your product or not. The first thing he will do is look at the front label, gets his attention. It looks very attractive label. The second thing he does, he looks at the back label. What is the product made of? The description of the product, the story about the product. And the last thing, they look at price. And of course, I'm talking about mainstream. And I'm going to go back to this later on, why mainstream is more important. So the ethnic usually buy based on, oh, I've heard of this brand. I know about it a little bit. They will buy it. and some just basically buy strictly on price. And again, if you want to sell in the US, and I've been preaching this for years, why are you focusing on only the ethnic consumer, which represents less than 10% of the market share? You have an audience of 350 million people. If you can capture 5 to 10% of this number, I don't think Lebanon can have enough products to sell in the US. So I see this on a regular basis. Let's sell to, we call them here the Habibi stores, and there's no profit, no margin, and there's no reorders. Now, let me, I'm working on 2 screens here. Okay. Route to market options to consider. And the ethnic represents, again, like I said, now less than 10% of the market. Why only focus on a small portion of the market with the lowest margins? The second avenue is mainstream should be the focus with 350 million consumers with high margins. And then, of course, the third one is the online market today. New market growth enables you to bypass the distributor and have great brand exposure, but requires good planning. I think you guys know a little bit about the first two. I'm going to touch on the e-commerce because it's a hot topic now. Online business today is all about the experience. You all heard of Amazon, and there's something with Amazon called Prime. And what Prime means that people pay Amazon an annual fee every year to get their products like tomorrow. And if we cannot provide that experience, the customers will not come back and buy from us. Yes, you can ship from Lebanon. It's not a bad idea, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of repeat business. And that's based on my own experience. I buy from Amazon all the time. I don't go to supermarkets anymore. Even I buy my produce from Amazon. There's Amazon Fresh, for example. There's other companies like Amazon, but I'm going to use Amazon today because it's a good example to use. Amazon today and online, it's not easy. It's a science. Actually, what Amazon is doing today is copying Google. When you go on Google and search a product, if you're not organic, if you're not strong on Google, you have a lot of organic presence, you have all the criteria there, you won't show on the first or second page with Google. Amazon is doing the same thing. So putting a product on Amazon or online, it does not guarantee you sales. If you search olive oil on Amazon, if you're not doing all the requirements that Amazon wants you to do, and if you did not work with a company here in the US that understands product placements, product promotions, all the needed requirements, your product will not even show on Amazon or any online service. So we have to be very tactful how we approach e-commerce. I don't want you to go on e-commerce and then come back and say, oh, it didn't work. E-commerce will work. Mr. On said something very important, that this is the way to the future. It's been here in the US for years. Actually, I've talked to many of my distributors, and they want me to take the brands I work with on Amazon because it will help them grow their sales in the stores. Amazon can be used, or the online business could be used for two things. Brand exposure. Don't expect to make profit right away from it because you're going to spend a lot of money up front. But if you're patient and you have, again, a long-term plan, it will be rewarding. I'm going to use this as an example. I touched earlier about doing a Me Too product. We find a product on the shelf that is doing well and we try to copy it. And I did say that there's a big need for Middle Eastern food. And remember, guys, half the Middle Eastern food is being manufactured in the US today by many non-Lebanese companies. So in order for us to penetrate the US market, we really need to think outside the box. We need to be creative. We need to have a plan. Otherwise, we will fail, and you will fail miserably and spend a lot of money. This is a prime example. A product is being sold today at Costco. This is really nifty. It's like, if you think about it, this is genius. It's very simple. There's not a whole lot to it. I think hummus was mastered a few years back by Sabra Hummus. The owner of Sabra did not invent the wheel. You know, in Lebanon, we have something called meza. In the US, we call it dip. Everything is a dip. So basically what Sabra Hummus did, took that same hummus that we put in this little plate and put it in a nice container, put a nice cover to it, put a nice name to it, understood what the consumer wants. Again, they did a study on the consumer behavior. And today, Sabra dominates the market. Well, of course, the guy sold the company to Coca-Cola for $200 million, but he started with $200,000. So this is a prime product that Costco is selling. They took hummus, which is a really small dip. If you look at the back of the box, they gave the consumer examples or ideas on how to eat the hummus. Vegetables. Today, people are looking to eat healthy. So this box has 20 of these little containers. Kids will take those as snacks. Adults will use them as snacks. And it's selling off the shelf like crazy. And price is not an issue, because today American consumer is looking for convenience. When the online business is booming, online business is not about price anymore. It's about convenience. And COVID-19 reinforced that. Now people don't want to go to the stores, including me. So I buy everything from online. So my question for you is, why can we not do something similar like this with za'atar? A za'atar dip. Put the same thing in a little container, put a picture there of tortilla chips or pita bread, and tell them this is the healthiest snack you can have. So thinking outside the box is so crucial in order to penetrate the US market. And this is, again, a prime example of what we need to do and think outside the box. I know we touched a lot on the FDA, but the FDA is half my problems from Lebanese companies. And this is why I want to touch on this today a little bit and not dwell too much on it again. You know, we talked about FSMA, and FSMA started really by Obama, and then Trump now is reinforcing it. Started, like, I think the reinforcement January 2019. What I want to touch on is number 7. I know we covered a lot of other things about FDA, but number 7 is so important. FDA agents can inspect any manufacturing facility in the world that exports to the USA. Probably many of my Lebanese friends are thinking, who's going to send an American from USA to Lebanon today to do an inspection? Yeah, whatever. Well, guess what? They can hire a company from Jordan to send somebody to Lebanon and inspect your facility. And I don't think somebody from Jordan is going to be so soft and easy on Lebanese companies. So just be prepared that FDA can hire someone in any neighboring country and send them to inspect your facility. And if you don't comply, they will not let you export to the US. And please, please, and I'm sharing with you experiences, do not ignore an email from the FDA. If the FDA sends you an email, you should just stop everything you're doing and respond to them, because they don't like to be ignored. And when they get ignored, you move to a blacklist. I don't know why this company is ignoring me. Something is not right. Already, they don't have trust in our system. And I don't want to share with you a negative picture here. I'm just being real with you, and I'm sharing with you what's going on the ground. So they don't trust our systems, not because anything against Lebanon, because they don't know anything about Lebanon. They don't know about any of our systems, what we're doing. So already they have this kind of hesitancy. And then if we're not responding to their needs, they get nervous. And then they put a little check on you and start treating you differently. So please, I want you to focus on this a lot. Because I had to deal with a lot of the FDA issues, and I work with a lot of FDA consultants on a regular basis, because what I do is take the brand from Lebanon, make sure it's going through all the FDA regulations, the branding, and then manage the brand in the US and make sure that I find the right distributors that meet the right manufacturer, and could be a good marriage. I decided to put a program. I didn't invent this program by myself. I worked with a group of FDA consultants, and they said, if we do something similar to this Lebanese Manufacturing Modernization Program, that will help the Lebanese manufacturers tremendously and take them from this level to this level. And this program is about sharing what we do in Lebanon, adapting the American standards, and promoting this program in the US for the companies that are in compliance of this program. So if you follow this program, American companies can look at this website and say, okay, this is a company that is in compliance with all this. They are adapting American standards. They've done all the right things. We can buy from them. And this program basically is a roadmap and a gateway to get you into the US quickly. And this program will help the Lebanese manufacturers think exports from day one. In the US, we export $2.5 trillion, but we import $2.5 trillion. No country can survive financially long-term without exports. That's how you get fresh money. This is what the Turks are doing. The Turks are pumping products into the US to bring fresh dollars to their country. We should be doing the same thing. So if we start thinking export from day one, then half the battle is behind us. And following a program that will show you how to do that and not wait to the last minute to start thinking export, it's not gonna work. It takes me an average of 6 to 9 months to finish a label. Just because of the new regulations, the new paperwork is required. So this is a very important program that I feel like will help Lebanon go to the next level. I mean, you can imagine if we take this and send it to CNN tomorrow, that Lebanon is following these regulations. What do you think will happen to the Lebanese industry? Solutions. Of course, all the above should be addressed. Other things I see problems with on a regular basis: Lebanese brands should represent the Lebanese Middle Eastern identity. We should be proud of who we are. We are proud of who we are by just saying things, but it should reflect in our product. We should tell our story in our product. This is what the Greeks do. Everybody else is doing the same thing. Even companies in the US, they talk about the family heritage, what they've done, why their product is best. So we in Lebanon, we have a better story than anybody else. When it comes to Middle Eastern cuisine, Lebanon is on top of the pyramid, is what everybody in the US thinks about. Lebanese cuisine is #1 in the Middle Eastern family. So we need to do that. We need to, and I'll share with you a brand later on, what we did with it. We should use names that show the Middle Eastern identity with letters that are easy to pronounce. I see this a lot. We use Lebanese words and they're hard to pronounce. For an American, anything more than 3 or 4 letters is too much to say. You need to shorten the names, don't use the letters all these hard letters that are hard for somebody like me that's been here over 30 years to say now. Can you imagine an American trying to say the word "ah"? You can't. You need to remove all this from your brands. And you know what? 90% of the brands in US from Lebanon have these letters. And when I present them to the American or the mainstream supermarket, the first thing they tell me, how am I gonna say this? I can't. You need to change that. You need to start thinking what the American consumer wants. This is why I said earlier, we need to study the consumer behavior, what they want, what they are looking for. We need to invest in better packaging. Half the bottles of the olive oil that come to the US leak. I have no idea why. I could not figure the problem. We ship products in the US from California to Texas or Texas to California. We don't have these issues. We need to look at better packaging, better bottling, better quality products. Remember, you're not the only one selling an olive oil bottle. There's the Greeks, the Spaniards, everybody else is. And they have improved on their packaging, except in Lebanon. We cannot just lead by basic bottle and think we're gonna gain market share. Yes, you might sell one bottle to this consumer, but the key to your success is the repeat business. And everybody in Lebanon knows these things. Claims. I think Mr. Fayyad talked about this and put a smile on my face. In Lebanon, we use claims as marketing tools. You cannot do that in the US. A good example, everybody uses the word all natural. And that's the first thing I do is take it out. When you claim things like all natural or whatever organic, you better have enough documentation to support your claims. And that's the first thing they will look at the FDA. You come to the port, all natural, show me documentation, they do a test, nothing is natural about it. They look at the ingredients, 2 of the ingredients are synthetic. How can you claim this as natural? And then they kill the shipment. They give us 2 options, to destroy the shipment in the US or ship it back. If you ship it back, you'll become on the alert list. And if you burn it or destroy it in the US, it'll cost you at least $10,000. Who wants to spend this kind of money for small errors like this? And let me talk about the alert list. Alert list is so important to pay attention to. When you are put on an alert list in the US by the FDA, you have to prove to the FDA for 5 consecutive times that your products are what you claim before they take you off the alert list. There's 2 major negatives to the alert list. You go on a public list, it's on the FDA website that your company was put on an alert. Now I'm taking your product to sell it to a mainstream supermarket or to an ethnic. The first thing they do, go on the alert list. Oh, this company is on the alert list, forget it, we're not interested. They don't just look that the product was on the alert list, they look at the company right away. And then on top of that, every time you bring a shipment to the US, because you're on the alert list, they have to inspect it and you have to bear all the costs of the inspection. So please listen to us here when we tell you you have to remove claims you cannot support, because it'll cost you a fortune and make you lose what you worked hard for. And step 7, which was addressed earlier, it is very important to file the proper import documentation. The key to speed custom clearance is filing the proper import paperwork. All forms need to be filled in English. You know how many lab tests I get in Arabic? And I'm thinking, who's going to read this? You need to translate all this documentation. And lastly, it's time to make sure you have these important documents inland for custom agents to review at US ports of entry. So you need to be prepared before you bring the product to the US. Otherwise, it will sit on the port and it will aggravate the distributor or whoever's buying your product and cause a lot of problems. I just want to touch a little bit about Made in Lebanon. Probably a lot of you are thinking, who's this company? Who's this guy talking about all these things? Well, my company, I started it as a food broker. Basically, I'll take a brand from Lebanon, and then I manage the brand in the US, make sure I assign it to the right distributors, and then manage the brand, manage the marketing, make sure they are not damaging the brand name, follow up with the distributor to make sure he's not hurting the brand name, the pricing. And quickly after I start doing this, I realized I need to work on the other part, which is the brand image and the FDA, because they all have to come together. And this is why I decided to do all this, the consulting part and the FDA. I've been in the US since over 30 years. I worked in corporate America since '93 in the distribution business. I've dealt with companies in Canada, South America. Of course, the US is my major territory. So we just prepare the brand, make sure they're in compliance. We make sure there is no issues when it hits our port here. I cannot afford any mistakes. I will not allow my manufacturer in Lebanon to ship anything if he's not in full compliance. And I usually go back to my FDA team and go back again and again to make sure we're not missing any steps, because it's very costly if we do. And of course, it's our reputation here on the line, and distributors trust us that we are doing all this already. I want to share with you two brands. There's plenty other, but I picked these two in particular. One is Kura Valley, all the Lebanese specialties, and the second one is Sanita that I handle in the US. And I picked Sanita because of COVID-19 and because today it is the most difficult product to import to the US.
Sam?
Yes.
Can we keep the Sanita example for the other webinar we're doing for the cosmetics and for the FMCG? We
can, yes, if you want to.
Okay, because we're running also a little bit on time, so
okay.
I don't know how much time.
I'm done. I still have two slides. Okay. This one and the Kura Valley, yeah. The reason I want to talk about Sanita is what we did today with Sanita is we registered the company with the FDA and we gave it an NDC number. That was the biggest success for me today, because now Sanita can easily export to the US because they have this number. And because of this NDC number, they are looked at as a higher standard manufacturer. And we can put claims like antimicrobial and other things, and it's becoming an OTC product. And the reason I'm using this example, the minute Sanita finished all the paperwork, they got an order right away for $50,000 quickly. As soon as I presented all these documents that this company is doing all this and is in compliance, I found a company in the US, put a $5,000 deposit on the order, and they're going to pay them before even ship the product in Lebanon, from Lebanon. We're going to be selling Cavi wipes, antimicrobial Cavi wipes. We worked hard on their on getting their licensing and all the certifications. Normally these things cost around 20 grand. We were able to do the whole thing under $2,500. And that is a very difficult product to sell today because of COVID-19. And the FDA has changed a lot of the regulations after COVID-19. The next product I would like to talk about is Kura Valley. When we first started with Kura Valley, if you look at the left, that was the label that we were thinking about. What I have done is went back to Kura Valley and said, this label is not going to work. I sent it to many of the mainstream supermarkets and ethnic, and they said, well, it looks nice, but it looks like all the other labels in the US from Lebanon, actually. We didn't do something different. We just basically copied something similar. But then we realized in order to penetrate the market, we had to do something different. So I worked with Kura Valley very closely. We hired a designer. Somebody can do a brand cohesion. We have everything from pomegranate, olive oil, pickles, olives. If you go to the shelf, they all look the same. Before agreeing finally on the label, I went to a group of mainstream customers. I did an evaluation with them, and I said, give me your opinion on this label. If you find this bottle on the shelf tomorrow, would you buy it? And they said, yes, we will. It looks very attractive. It's simple, right to the point. You tell me exactly what I want, and yes, I'll be interested. So after we did this study, we agreed on this label. And then we secured an order with a distributor in the US. To be honest with you, I'm not interested in the ethnic market here in the US. The reason I created this label is to penetrate the 350 million people in the US. This is where my market should be. Today, this product is being under evaluation from Kroger, Central Market, H-E-B, and online. We're looking to work with a company online that's going to help us with all the products, all the whole line. And I want to share with you an example why we go to mainstream. That same 500 ml olive oil, unfiltered, today is sold at the ethnic supermarkets for $6.50. That same product at H-E-B, the bottom price is $13. Actually, it starts at 13 all the way to 2024. When I went to H-E-B and said, I want to sell it for $9.99, they said, no, don't do that. They will think there's something wrong with your product. If everybody starts at 13 and you go at $9, $10, the consumer will not buy it. Again, this is another example on how the American consumer behaves in this country. I thought, you know what, I can afford easily to sell it for less than $10. And all the buyers said, no, if you're gonna work with us, we need this to be $13 and then go up in price as the brand builds legs and more popularity. So with $13 now, we have enough money to do marketing. My manufacturer can make more profit. We all can make more profit. And we have a big exposure. So at $6.50, there's no way you can do any marketing and grow the brand in the US. But at $13, you have a lot of room to do whatever you want. So this is why I want Lebanese companies to think mainstream, export to mainstream. Yes, we can start always with ethnic to get the brand going, but the target should be mainstream. And now more than ever, we have a great window of opportunity because the American consumer is embracing the Middle Eastern cuisine. If we don't seize the moment now, I don't know if it will ever happen again, but today everybody is talking about our cuisine. And again, I want to thank you all for your time. I hope you get something out of this. And again, thank you, Celine, for your help and putting this together.
Thank you, Sam. So now our last intervention is with Mrs. Celine Melki. She's the Chief of Party of a USAID-funded project, Lebanon Investment in Quality Link, that is being implemented by Land O'Lakes. She used to work before as food safety expert at UNIDO and was the head of quality assurance at Cortas for more than 13 years. The floor is yours, Celine.
Thank you, Celine. I always feel like I'm talking to myself when I'm talking to you. Okay, so I'm gonna just try to share my screen. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So I will try not to exceed the time that I have to that was given to me. As a conclusion of all what has been said before in all presentations, and I thank IDAL for this webinar because it is really it brings all the information together. I would like to share with the attendees what we as the Lebanon Investment in Quality, a USAID-funded project, are doing and have been doing for the past 2 years, almost 2 years. So LINK project is almost $6 million total budget. As I said, it is funded by USAID, and it started in 2018, will end in 2021. Our main goal is to support agribusinesses in Lebanon to increase their competitiveness and access new markets, whether local or more specifically export markets. At the beginning of the project, we did a sector assessment, and we identified the subsectors of focus, which are the fresh fruits, processed products, and dairy products. And these were the subsectors that we really worked in. Under the LINK project, we aim at partnering with more than 60 businesses to provide targeted and customized support based on the needs of each business. And I like to tie our objectives to what has been said previously in the presentations, whether with Dr. Nasruddin talking about the third-party auditing and inspection on food safety, or with what Mr. Sam just talked about, the branding, developing the brand and the marketing plan, which are all important components for all businesses. Food quality and safety go hand in hand with innovation, new product development, and technology upgrades for businesses to comply with local and international standards and be able to compete and access new markets. LINK's role is to help small businesses acquire new technologies, especially when they are unable to do so or when they do not know how to do it. We also support larger investments, which will benefit a large number of farmers supplying these businesses with the main inputs. And this is where I want to say that our interventions are always linked backward to farmers who would benefit from the improved practices or improved income. So this is how our project is built. LINK assistance takes two approaches. Either we provide technical assistance or we provide technical assistance and co-investment grants. And co-investment grants are, when we started the project, were with 50% cost share from the grantees. I would like to share with you very quickly some results that we achieved until the end of March. We partnered with 36 businesses, and with these partnerships, we committed $1 million from LINK contribution, with 50%, more than 50%, $1,400,000 from grantee contribution. We have like more than 1,200 individuals who have received training, and more than 1,500 individuals who benefited from our interventions, whether improved practices, increase in income, new jobs created, or other types of benefit. I would like to share with you now some specific examples of businesses that we worked with, so that people would understand how we work and how we approach our partners. The first example is Beverages. Beverages have been looking at new product development initiatives to increase their apple purchases from local farmers and support the local economy. And here I want to talk about approaching the farmers for grade C apples and targeting the lower quality apples. With capital and technical support from LINK, LVDC has been able to expand their current product operation and product offerings, which currently include apple juice and apple vinegar. And so under LINK, we have introduced a new apple-based product, which is the apple sauce. To do so, LVDC, with the support from LINK, has acquired new production line with all required equipment and machinery, and also has received technical assistance on marketing and sales to promote this new product and introduce it to the market. So this is under the fresh fruit subsector. Under the dairy subsector, I would like to talk about Hajjar Foods and the Go Baladi brand. As you know, there has been a growing demand for goat products in recent years, And this rising demand has pushed Hajjar Food to look for ways to secure adequate volume of milk and with good quality of milk to meet the demand, while simultaneously investing in new product development to further grow this dairy sector. The purpose of Link's co-investment with GoBaladi is to support Hajjar Food in upgrading its production process to increase productivity, to reduce production cost, and to introduce new products to meet the increasing demand for goat dairies. We also provided targeted technical assistance in marketing strategy to contribute to this end. A third example is Agrocitrus, which falls under the third subsector, which is processed food. As you know, more and more people are turning to healthy lifestyles and looking for natural and minimally processed products. So carob molasses is a very versatile product that could be eaten on its own or used as a natural sweetener. Link's partnership with Agrocitrus aimed at establishing the first carob molasses production facility in the Akkar region. Before that, the farmers who owned carob trees had to go to Batroun or to Jbeil to be able to produce their molasses. So we supported Agrocitrus in designing from scratch a new facility with a fully automated production line, complying with food safety requirements in terms of workflow, employees flow, all complying with what has been said about food safety requirements, HACCP, GMP. So we always, all our interventions take into consideration these requirements. In addition, a new brand name and logo were created with a new label design complying with export markets labeling requirements. We started with the Gulf markets, and then we also developed, we worked with Agrocitrus to develop a label complying with the US markets. Examples of technical assistance other than the co-investment grants, the Good Times, for those who do not know, the Good Times is a small business. I call it a brand because it started by the brand. It's a small business that specializes in oregano. It packages different mixes of this herb. So Link provided the TA, targeted TA in food safety, in preparation for an advanced certification scheme to comply with export requirements. Here again, the owner wanted to export to the US and wanted to comply with the FSCC and other schemes. So this is where we provided him with targeted technical assistance in food safety. Another example is Adonis Valley, which is also a famous local brand that produces and packages a wide variety of organic and healthy products. Here also we provided support in the design of a new website and a consumer brochure to enhance market presence and visibility. And again, Adonis Valley wanted to develop these tools because to access new markets, export markets. Underlying all of the above is Link's support to farmers, providing the raw material for agribusinesses. And as you know, to provide the final quality product, you need the quality product from the quality input, if you want. So this is where providing the right assistance, training to farmers on good agriculture practices, on different types of good manufacturing practices, for women cooperatives. This is where also where our activity falls. Finally, I would like to say a quick talk about our emergency response that followed the COVID-19 outbreak. And this has come following a request from USAID to provide adaptive management, if you want, to this crisis. What we did is we established or we designed three interventions. One was to address sanitation problems with our partners, to provide them with technical assistance on how to take the right measures to reduce infection transmission and food safety broadly. The second intervention was designed around supporting Lebanese farmers in rural areas. So we distributed more than 110,000 vegetable seedlings to more than 1,800 farmers. And these, we also distributed the potato seeds, oregano seedlings, and irrigation systems. And we're talking, these interventions happened between March and today and last week. And in the interventions, the third intervention was through linking our partners with entities who were distributing rations to most vulnerable populations in the country, so that they, instead of buying imported products, so that they can use our locally produced products. So this is in a nutshell. I know I went very quickly. This is in a nutshell what Link is doing. And so we provide technical assistance, we provide co-investment grants. We are there to help agribusinesses in Lebanon. We still have less than 2 years to go. And we will really would like to be supporting more and more businesses. In case for people who are interested, you can visit our Facebook page. And you can also contact us. I think, Celine, you will be providing our contact numbers to those who would be interested. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Celine. Yes, we will be sending follow-up emails tomorrow. And people can get back to us, send us any question that they have. Unfortunately, because the time was running up, we will not be able to have the Q&A now at the end. But most of the questions that were asked during the webinar were actually addressed by the panelists directly in the Q&A section in the Zoom. Now, we will give Dr. Nasreddin, he has some final remarks regarding the webinar. Thank you so much. Dr. Abdullah, we cannot hear you. You're muted.
Yeah. Thank you, Celine. Thank you. Thank you, Fadi, Sam, Murad, Celine. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all participants. I hope that webinar was a kind of an introductory information for all interested parties in Lebanon to export to the United States. As you've noticed, it's very promising. At the same time, it's very challenging. As an embassy here, we will definitely keep supporting all those initiatives that help Lebanese producers to export to the United States. I just want to focus on some ideas. Celine, if you could probably think of developing a kind of, I mean, based on that webinar, I think having a kind of a train the trainers for food consultants in Lebanon would be a great idea. So we can have like our experts in Lebanon, like Mr. Fadi, other experts, to train actually new consultants in the field in order to support the industry. I think that would be a great idea. So we can have a greater outreach in Lebanon itself. And also, think that the idea of accredited lab is crucially important. Mr. Fadi has pointed out to this, and I guess we will privately discuss that and see how we can help at this level. In terms of, I mean, what we're doing here, as I mentioned at the beginning, a concrete way to take this further, I think, is to bring producers from Lebanon who have already reached all the requirements, and we discussed that before, Celine. We have those producers who have reached the requirement can come all over to the United States and participate in some events, and maybe get to meet all producers and distributors here in the United States face to face. Yes, some question I think were about some product by product like za'atar, gin, other products. I think we have that on the table and we're working on that, and we'll come up with like coming webinars on those specific products to see how we can help. At the embassy, with the support of the ambassador, we're trying to help in terms of opening up the market. with some of the big Lebanese distributors over here. But I wanted to go back to the idea of also of Mr. Murad, which was great about the Mooney box. Our idea, and we discussed that as well with Sam, is to try to focus not only on Lebanese consumers in the United States, but we would like to find a way to enter the US market and to have maybe the US consumers itself. The Mooney box is a great idea. Maybe also focusing more on the US consumer, I think, will help very much our export to the United States. And this is our main objective at the moment. And finally, I would like to thank everyone for participating, and we will keep in touch. And I think this is just the beginning, and there is a long way to go. Thank you, Celine.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will try to answer all the questions that we are receiving by emails. Like, we will send emails with all the responses. Okay, because we will not be able now to tackle them in the webinar. We have the details, the contact details of everyone.
Are you going to send questions?
Yes, Fadi, I will send you the list of questions that we received, and maybe then you can send me by email all the responses, because I think some of the questions need a little bit of research, like they're a little bit too detailed.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes, need a little bit of space.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Goodbye.
Thank you, Celine.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.